What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Cityscape Brewing. Today I have some sour news. If you've been a fan of my channel, you know that I've done a bunch of different sour videos, and I like to do them a couple of different ways. Sometimes I used a Lactobacillus planetarium drink from Goodbelly to sour and Kettle sour overnight, which we're going to be talking about, and why I'm changing away from that. Or more recently, I've used a yeast like Cerevisiae to sour the yeast as it is fermenting. And what I found is that using a yeast like Cerevisiae can over sour your beer. And so I've pitched it 50-50 with USO5, but I have less control of how sour it gets. So the kettle souring process is actually the best way to do it. But what I found out was recently the Goodbelly probiotic drink that I used to use actually changed the bacteria that they have inside of that product. It actually uses a different bacteria, which isn't as good to kettle sour any longer. But don't worry, the process is still the exact same. How does it work? Well, I'm going to tell you all about it after you guys hit that like and subscribe button, grab yourself a beer, and we're going to get after it. All right, I know you guys all hit that subscribe button because you're awesome, and you hit that like button because it helps out the channel a lot. But if you really want to be awesome, hit that join button below and become a channel member. Members enjoy awesome perks like some exclusive recipes, my brew day sheets to help you along the way and take some notes, and you get to watch my videos early before anybody else. So hit that join button and become awesome. Before we get started, I actually really want to talk a little bit about doing a sour in general. Some people get a little bit worried about it, about whether they're going to infect all their equipment, and do I need specialized equipment in order to do a sour? No, the answer is it's almost exactly the same as doing a regular beer, especially if you're using one of those other yeasts like Cerevisiae or Philly sour. However, the kettle souring process is an overnight process, or sometimes even up to 36 hours, to let the beer sour overnight in the kettle. But the rest of the process is almost exactly the same. There's only about 2 extra steps that we need to throw into the middle. So for my sours, I keep the base recipe almost exactly the same. I use 7.5 pounds of white wheat, and that's really to give this cloudier appearance in the beer. I like it to look kind of like a fruit juice to some extent when I'm doing a fruited sour. And then I throw in 5.5 pounds of Pilsner malt to keep it light and not add a lot of extra color. And that's really it for the grain build, right? Super simple. So to do a kettle sour, you mill your grains up like normal, you actually mash like normal, and then you start your boil like normal. The difference is you're boiling for about 15 minutes just to kill the bacteria and stuff that might be on the grains itself. And then you're cooling down to around 100 degrees or so before you pitch some type of souring agent. And in this case, I'm using Omega's Lacto, which has a blend of that Lactobacillus planetarium and another bacteria that will sour overnight. It likes temperature ranges between 68 and 95 degrees, and depending on that temperature range will depend on how long it takes to sour the beer. So once you've actually lowered the temperature in your wort, you're going to be taking a pH reading, and that's where this different process kind of comes in. So you will need a pH meter of some sort. I'll have a few in my Amazon store in the video description below. Go check it out. I use one from Dr. Meter, but there are a lot of different ones that I'll have linked in my Amazon store below for you guys to go check out. They're relatively inexpensive, usually under 30 bucks, and in most cases you can get one for under 15. It comes with calibration solution that's really easy to use, but one thing I like about this one is it actually does temperature calibration as well, and not all meters do that. So when you get done with your mashed pH will be somewhere around 5.2, 5.3 if you add salt additions to get it to that optimal pH for your mash. But what I like to do right away is add some lactic acid. And the reason I add this is to drop that pH from about 5.2 to somewhere around 4.5. I do that using kind of a standard medicine dropper that you can get from any type of pharmacy that they use to administer like stuff like cough syrup or kids medicine. If you ask, they usually give these things out for free. I do this by adding 2 or 3 milliliters at a time until it gets to 4.5 pH. It generally, for a 5.5 gallon batch, takes about 10 to 12 milliliters before I actually get to the 4.5 pH. The reason we want to drop it right away with lactic acid is just to make sure any other bacteria and stuff don't actually start taking hold before the souring agent does. After that, I'm going to pitch that lacto right into my wort, and then we're going to cover the kettle with some saran wrap, We're gonna put the lid back on, and then we're gonna wrap the lid also with saran wrap. You can also do this in a glass carboy or something else if you didn't want to leave it in the kettle overnight. That's totally fine. Then starting at about 24 hours or so, or even 18 hours if you want, you can start checking that pH to see where you're at. And in between doing that, you want to rinse that diode that's in here with distilled water, so you're not leaving any type of souring or low acidic liquid on that probe end. We're looking to get this beer to around 3.3 to 3.5 pH. If you're not adding any fruits, you probably want to err on that 3.5 side that's a little bit sweeter. If you are adding fruits later, you can get it a little more tart because that sweetness of the fruit will actually kind of help out to balance that tartness out. In this case, I actually got down to about 3.4, and I think that's a good middle of the road. I'm gonna be making a raspberry sour, so in this particular case, it's not super sweet. The raspberries have a little tartness themselves, so 3.4 will be just fine. And that's where I'm actually at today. I'm actually on day 2 of the kettle souring process. I've got my kettle here heating back up to a boil, and what that's gonna do is kill off all of that lacto that's in there, and it will stop that souring process. It will actually smell sour though when you take that lid off. The second day, since we've already boiled it 15 minutes the first day, we only have to boil it 45 minutes the second day. And this is when you're gonna add any type of hops or any other adjuncts that you wanna put in this beer. You don't wanna add any hops the first day, because hops actually help preserve beer, and it will actually inhibit or not allow any of that lacto to really take hold for the overnight kettle souring process. So the first day you don't add any hops. The second day it's totally up to you. In my case, I don't add any hops the second day because I'm going to be adding fruit, and unless it's going to really pair well with that particular fruit, I want the flavor of this to be the fruit and the tartness of the beer. And then after that, it's just cooling down and pitching yeast like normal. And in this case, for these, I use a US-05 yeast to actually ferment this at 67 degrees in my fermentation chamber. That clean ale yeast is gonna get the job done. I don't need any extra flavors and stuff from any other types of yeast, so US-05 is a good choice. You can also choose, if you want to add some yeast nutrient, which I always do about 10 minutes left in the boil, or pitch 2 packets of US-05, which sometimes helps if it's really acidic. But what I found is it's not really necessary. It will get there eventually, and it will ferment out all of your beer. After that comes the fun part. I'm going to be just adding fruit, and you can do this by buying frozen fruit in the grocery store. You can buy fresh fruit, and then I always clean it and then dunk it in some sanitizer, and then I freeze it anyway. And the reason I do that is because it helps break up the casing of that fruit, whether it's raspberries or blackberries or cherries or whatever, and it will help release some of those juices into your beer and will get that nice color and flavor that you want from the fruit. After it's frozen, I actually take it out. I put a big paint strainer bag that's a silicone 5-gallon paint strainer bag. Also in my Amazon store, you can find those as well. Really inexpensive compared to buying them at like a Home Depot or a Lowe's or other home improvement store. And then I use a potato masher or something like that to mash up all of the fruits and make sure they're good and broken up. Sometimes if you buy frozen fruits, they're already kind of mushy in the package, which works out just fine. So you can, before you open it, you can actually just kind of crush them up after they're thawed out inside of the package with your hands. That's totally fine to do as well. Then I put all of that fruit inside of the paint strainer bag. I close it off by tying it shut, and then I put it inside of a fermenter that has a bigger mouth on it. In this case, I use a glass big mouth bubbler fermenter. You can use whatever you have, even a bucket. So then what I'll do is I'll transfer that beer on top of the fruit, and it will re-ferment a little bit because of the sugars, but I want to leave most of that yeast back into the primary. And then I let that beer soak on top of that fruit for about a week, and then I will transfer it to a keg, carb it up, and it's ready to drink. So although we're not able to use the Good Belly probiotic drinks, there are other brands like Omega's Lacto, or even White Labs has a Lactobacillus plantarum blend that you can use as well. If you have any questions whatsoever about the fruiting or the kettle souring process, leave them in the comment section below. Happy to help you guys out. I know sometimes this can be a little overwhelming, but trust me, it's a super simple process. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and until next time, happy brewing and cheers. Hey, thanks for watching my video. You're awesome. You want to be even more awesome? Hit that join button and become a member. You'll get exclusive members-only recipes and other perks like Brew Day sheets, and watch my videos early as they drop before anyone else. So hit that join button below, become a member, and be awesome.